Nick now knows the full truth about JT, Summer's back in town, and Katie is kind of missing. Stay tuned for this week's Restless Wrap.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, I'm Rachel Goodman here with another week of Restless Wrap. We were kind of all over the place this week with lots of little crazy things happening, leading up to JT. I think we can all safely assume that we are going to see a JT reemergence into Genoa City, but that is to be, we haven't quite seen it yet, so don't want to say that's definitely coming our way, but it's hinted at. Just to give everyone a shout out who's here in the chat right now, we have Hubby Joe, Mary, Rainy J, and Susan Russo. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will be reading your comments and giving shout outs to anyone who happens to pop in along the way. I know that we have maybe some people missing because of the Super Bowl, so even if you are not watching live, thank you for watching. So shout out to all the fans. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. We had a lot with Phyllis, Nick, Sharon, a lot of conversations that we sort of wanted to have happen for a very long time that finally happened. So we'll jump in with Phyllis. We pick up the week with him, and we pick up the week ending where we, starting where we ended last time, which is with Nick and Phyllis talking, and Phyllis telling Nick that Sharon knew about JT's murder too because she was in on it. So Phyllis spills the beans, and at the beginning of the week, it genuinely seemed like Phyllis and Nick were going to break up. It had kind of been feeling that way for, weeks at this point. It really seemed like a rebound, and it kind of felt like it was fizzling away to me as a viewer watching this. But there were some twists and turns here. So Nick gets the four women into the same room, and they're all talking about this. They recount everything that happened with JT. We saw some flashbacks. We saw the murder happening again. We actually got some new stuff too that I don't think we had first time around, which is more of the perspective of Nikki, Sharon, and Phyllis. We saw more with Victoria when we first saw it, and so it was kind of nice to see a slightly different point of view, though we did get the background on the story with Victoria. I guess in case anyone either forgot, because it has been a long time. It's been, I think, in the spring, maybe late spring, is when all of this happened originally. So it has been a long time that they have been, that the storyline has been going on. And it was kind of nice to see that refresher and to see how Nick reacted to all of this. It did make me think, though, that they really should have just told Nick from the beginning, because which didn't make sense to me. We know that there were many times when Sharon almost told Nick. I think it was the night of, not their engagement party, but the night that they were having like a kind of like a bachelor/bachelorette party. Nick and Sharon on top of the, on the top of the club, at the top of the tower, Nick and Sharon almost ran into each other. Well, they kind of did run into each other, and they almost told each other the truth, but we know that the other women didn't want this news to come out to Nick, and it's almost like, well, if it had, maybe Sharon and Nick would have gotten married. But we'll get to that conversation in a second, because Nick and Sharon did get to talk this week, and it was pretty, it felt like it was pretty, like it should have happened, and that it cleared a lot of things between the two of them, and cleared a lot of things with what we were all wondering too. Hubby Joe, Nick needs to dump Phyllis. She is trouble. Rainy J, yes, Sharon and Nick needed that talk. They definitely did. Hubby Joe, the whole storyline does not make sense. It was clearly self-defense, and the writers made it too soapy. Yeah, Rainy J agrees with Hubby about Nick needing to dump Phyllis. While I definitely agree with you, Hubby Joe, about the storyline dragging on, it really did drag on. And as I've been saying too, it just really needed to have more of the emotional impact on Victoria, not because she was carrying a secret of, of this murder, but I wanted to see the emotional implication of coming out of an abusive relationship, and I feel like we didn't get that the way we could have if they had not turned this into a murder storyline. Todd Beaton says Nick was in the wrong. Yeah, okay. So Nick learns all of this after he ends up talking, after this whole thing comes out, Nick learns about it. Nick ends up going to talk to Sharon privately, and there were a lot of things already wrong about this. So number one, he clearly didn't tell Phyllis. That's the first thing. He didn't tell her. He's going off to talk to Sharon. Probably shouldn't do that privately without telling Phyllis, hey, I need to have this conversation. It's one thing if that's the case and that Nick, says, hey, for my own mental health, I need to go in and clear this with this person. That's the first thing. The second thing is that as I was watching this conversation with Nick and Sharon, it almost seemed like they were going to get back together. I don't know if anyone is watching live, or if you're not watching live, you can definitely comment and let me know what you think. But did anyone else think that Nick and Sharon were going to either kiss or admit they still had feelings for each other? Because that's what I was getting, is that they had these deep feelings that were never going to go away, and that almost that they were trying to fix things between them, not have a conversation that would end things. So during this conversation, Nick admits to Sharon, you were the one I thought I could trust most, and that's why Nick has the biggest problem with her, and that he's not blaming, but he's most hurt with Sharon. She was the one he was with during this whole entire situation. Nick probably feels, and he kind of expressed this too, that Sharon should have told him. Sharon should have been confiding in him and letting him know what was happening. And so Nick feels a certain level of betrayal because of that, and more betrayal than anyone else because, okay, yeah, he wasn't with Phyllis when this whole thing happened. He was with Sharon, and Sharon should have, he feels anyway, Sharon should have told him, and she wanted to tell him, but it never seemed like every time she was going to, the other women were like, yeah, no, you can't do that, and she would back down, and that was that. And maybe Sharon did feel like she was in a hard place, and it's understandable, but Nick was just kind of expressing that, yeah, like, hey, I was with you, you should have told me what was going on. Sharon ends up having this really like sentimental moment and makes a really valid point too, that yes, maybe if she had been honest with Nick, it would have prevented him from sleeping with Sharon or with Phyllis. But her point was that Nick's always going to go and run off and be with Phyllis, and that there was nothing she could do to stop that from happening, whether it was when it happened or if it was for another reason that Nick was going to run off and end up in Phyllis's bed. So that's basically what Sharon was saying, is that, yeah, like it wouldn't have changed anything. You still would have done this. But for a moment, Nick questioned, he was like, we could have been married right now. We could have still been together. And that's the second thing that Nick did wrong in this situation. Not only did he go behind Phyllis's back and go to Sharon and have this private talk, but then the other thing is, he's basically, the vibe I was getting from Nick is that a part of him wanted to still make things work with Sharon, and he even said, hey, what if we could still be together? And it was like, no, Nick, if you're gonna be with Phyllis, you need to make that decision and not keep going back and forth, which is the point that Sharon made, is that you're going to always go back to her. You're never going to be faithful 100%. So that's kind of where things left. It was a good conversation for them to have, but I just feel like there's still more to be had between the two of them, and that really Nick and Sharon are the two people that should be together. Surprisingly, so I thought that Nick was going to be mad at Phyllis. That's kind of where it was. He kind of was the most angry with her these last couple weeks, but then when he goes back to see her, Phyllis, after he's done talking to Sharon, he says that he understands why she did what she did, and that he's glad that the other women had Phyllis, and that he probably would have done the same thing as her. So he basically defends everything Phyllis has done, and they seem like they're in a good place now, which I didn't expect. It was kind of a random twist, but I guess they just didn't want to put Sharon and Nick back together right now. I don't know. I'm not happy with Nick and Phyllis being together. So let's check in with the chat here. Mary, I say they will get back together. Todd Beaton, Nick and Sharon forever. Tamika Bynum says, yes, Nick and Sharon seemed like they were going to reconcile. And Rainy J, Sharon held her own. What she said about Phyllis is so true. Yeah. What Sharon really made some valid points. And I love the fact that they still had the conversation. Some people who had formerly been to, some former couples may not see a reason to have that conversation. But I felt like Nick and Sharon needed it because it was just something that happened during their time together. And they needed to discuss it, even if they are no longer together. But I feel like Nick should have told Phyllis where he was going, and he should have been more honest and more open about that instead of doing this behind her back. Todd Beaton, what about time? What about the time Nick was JT? Nick, you keep a secret to sleep with Phyllis. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is that Nick tried to bring up the fact that, oh, well, I went around pretending to be JT and you didn't even tell me then. Well, why would Sharon have told you then when you're acting that way and when you're doing something so sneaky? Why would he even show up and pretend to be JT? And let's not forget that one of the reasons why they broke up didn't even have to do with Phyllis. It had more to do with the fact that Nick was changing and acting very much like Victor and doing things that Sharon wasn't happy with, going off, buying a home without even letting her see it, trying to do things that just went against what Sharon wanted to do without really involving her. So it had more to do with the cheating. That was just a huge part of it. Rainy J, only because Sharon shot him down. Hashtag Nick can be so weak. About Sharon shooting Nick down and then he goes back to Phyllis. That's kind of what I felt too, is that he only did it because things weren't going to work with the Sharon. And when he went back, he's like, yeah, Phyllis, I love you. I don't regret that we're together. It just didn't seem genuine. Tamika says when Nick finds out Summer slept with Billy, he will dump Phyllis. Yeah, he might, because that is something that Phyllis should not have withheld from him. And that will be a fight all over again. I don't see Phyllis and Nick as being this, long-term couple. It was a rebound. That's all it is, really. And I know that Nick always goes for Phyllis while he's with Sharon. I know that tends to be a recurring theme with him, but I just think that he needs to get his act together and stop cheating and just be with Sharon. That's what I think. And it sounds like a lot of people are in agreement with me over that. We have Aaron here. Hey, Aaron, welcome to the chat. So let's do this. Before we get into our next topic, let's talk about the fact that we, AfterBuzz, are very thankful to have you guys watching the show and how glad we are to have your support. We just want to say thank you for making us the ESPN of TV talk. For us to continue to grow, we could definitely use your help. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. And if you're on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating. But no matter where you are, leave us a comment so you can get involved in the conversation. Being a part of AfterBuzz has meant so much to all of us, and we truly appreciate you supporting us in doing what we love. Don't forget to tell your friends and keep enjoying your shows. And on that note too, just so you know, if you do like and subscribe and follow us, you can turn off all the notifications and not worry about it, bothering you. And you can still subscribe. Okay, it's that time of the show where we take calls from anyone who's watching live. We are on, it's about 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on February, I can't believe it's February already, February 3rd. If you are listening live, the number to call in is 424-354-8302. Again, if you are listening live right now, the number is 424-354-8302. Okay, let's move on. We touched a lot about everything with Nick and Phyllis and Sharon. All right, let's move on to the next topic here. We had things happening with Mia and Ray. We had Arturo and Abby. I want to touch on that too, but let's jump ahead into the later part of the week. When we get back to everything happening kind of after the engagement party, we have Victor babysitting, and now suddenly this whole week they had a lot with Katie and seeing these friends seeing one friend. And Victor and Victoria, in a really healthy, happy, positive way, they were definitely encouraging her to have her make-believe friend, which was awesome. Which is a very loving, touching moment. So I want to say too that even though this ends up being a kind of a bad thing that happens and a really scary thing, with Katie being kind of taken, we're not sure yet what happened. But even though it ended kind of badly, it was nice seeing Victor around the kids and babysitting. We also had Victor giving Victoria the CEO role. Later, when Summer comes back, he sort of said Summer could work under Victoria, but we had a lot with Victor and just being around the family. We had some scenes with Nikki. That's kind of where it ends up going. But Victor babysitting, and then on top of that, he has a really pretty substantial conversation with Victoria about how he's not going to number one, let anyone hurt her, and two, he gives her this pep talk about how it's she doesn't have to be with guys like JT, and how it wasn't her fault. And I feel like that's what Victoria needed to hear, especially from her dad, who she respects so much, and hearing that from Victor means a lot more than hearing it from maybe someone else in her family. And so I the last ever since this whole storyline with JT has kind of had ended in murder. I'm going to put that in quotes because now he might not be murdered. He might be alive. Ever since we kind of saw the murder happen, or what we assume is the murder, Victoria, we've kind of seen her going through phases and through, not phases, that's the wrong word. We see her going through dealing with the emotions accompanied with all the trauma. And so it's been a grieving process in a way, dealing with not only the death of this relationship, but also, learning more about herself and trusting herself to make decisions, to be with the right man, to be with the right person. And having this conversation with Victor, it feels like it's another step in the right direction, especially when we see her talking to Billy, and we can really feel what she's going through with this, in that she just doesn't trust herself to be with the right person who's not going to turn into JT, or even if they don't turn into an abuser, or even if it doesn't turn into an abusive relationship, Victoria just doesn't trust herself in general right now. And it's nice that she has this conversation with Victor to kind of reinforce that no, Victoria, you can actually pick the right person, and you can actually, this isn't your fault, and you have control over who you're going to be with. And so actually we have some comments in the chat here too. Okay, we have some comments about Summer, so we'll definitely get there next, but just to kind of briefly give some shout outs to the chat. Aaron Brody, I'm glad Summer's not pregnant. Mary, I was truly liking Lola, but now I find she's very annoying. Aaron Brody, Mary, I agree, she can go. Hubby Joe, agreed, Aaron, that would have been hard to watch. Oh, with Summer pregnant. And Tamika, Lola is too self-righteous. Mary, don't know what they were thinking of the storyline, Lola being a virgin in these days. Yeah, it's true, but we'll get to that in a second. And then Rainy J just says, Lola plays too many games, never satisfied, always whining. I agree with that too, and we will talk about her next. We have a Victoria comment from Hubby Joe. Victoria just needs something to hold her up, like a good cane. Okay, no pun intended, I'm sure, Hubby Joe. We didn't see Kane this week, maybe next week. We did have some moments with Victoria and Billy where it's pretty clear, even though Billy's really trying, it sounds like Victoria is going to keep pushing him away for right now. But Rainy J, sorry Rachel, we got sidetracked. Don't be sorry. I will gladly read your comments, even if, we'll definitely get to that, to Lola after this too. But for right now, yeah, let's just touch a little bit more on the babysitting ordeal and the fact that we keep seeing Katie, who's at the mansion with Victor. We keep seeing her go there and go off and play with her friend. And at first, okay, I wasn't sure where they were going with this. I kind of figured it had something to do with JT, but at first we didn't see anyone. There was no weird camera angle. So it just maybe seemed like, obviously not just a fake friend, but couldn't tell if they were gonna go, yeah, maybe like Katie was seeing JT's ghost. I didn't know if they were going in that direction with it or more in the direction of, okay, this is a real person that she's seeing. So as they kind of moved on with that storyline, eventually we got the sense that no, this was a real person who Katie was seeing, and she was agreeing to like not tell anyone that he or she was there. Meanwhile, we see this man who is watching the security cameras, watching Victor, Nikki, and Victoria. And so it's like, okay, where is this coming from? Where is this person watching? And at the end of this week, we kind of got a better sense when at this point, Billy's at the mansion too, and everyone starts to hear Katie talking. And they hear Katie talking in between a wall. Okay, I'm gonna say this. This comment comes from Hubby Joe, who was watching this week with me. He was like, okay, where did this wall come from? Did it just suddenly appear? How did they not know that there was a wall or sorry, not the wall, but like the in between the wall, the space where they heard Katie talking from like the other side of the wall, as if there was another room they didn't know about? Like a little corridor, I guess, that no, that had kind of just been there and was randomly Victor didn't even think to check there. So in any case, they're all looking for Katie, and then they hear her, and then it's kind of implied that she's maybe with JT, presumably JT, and that he is kind of sort of kidnapped her and he's been watching. Of course, it could turn out that it's not JT and that it's some other random person who's framing them for this murder, who obviously knows about the murder. So we will see what happens with that. It was, yeah, the whole Katie crying in between well, not crying, but like just kind of talking in between the wall didn't seem to make sense that they wouldn't know about this other room. Okay, a couple more comments here. Mary, okay, so how did Katie get behind that wall? Aaron Brody, I see more chemistry with Kyle and Finn than him and Lola. That's true. I agree with that. Hubby Joe, there is a poltergeist in the house. Yeah, and at first, that's kind of where I thought they were going with it. And then we started, seeing that it was a real person without actually seeing the person. Aaron Brody, right, how did Katie get in the wall in the first place? That was stupid. Yeah. I don't even understand, and how they wouldn't know about it is beyond me. So, it seems like where they're going with this is that JT is going to be alive, and that it's not going to be, that it's not, there's not going to be any trial, or if there is, it's going to get cut short because JT is going to walk in. He's going to be alive, and everyone will be innocent because here's the thing, he's not dead. And I don't know, maybe he'll try to sue them for assault. But then what's he doing inside their house? But then it's a whole, I'm just going off of the previews they showed us too. It seemed like there is going to be some kind of court case, but who knows what it's for, or presumably for Victor, because Nikki did kind of speak up like she was going to try to take his place. But we don't know the resolution of what's going to happen with Katie yet. And, for all we know, they're going to just reveal that it's this guard that works at the house and that it's not JT. But then why is he watching them? Kind of creepy. Todd Beaton, Katie will come all grown up. Yeah. Talk about aging someone. Hubby Joe, just keep her away from the TV. They're here. Yes, true. Keep her away from the TV. And then Mary says it's been dragging way too long, this JT storyline. So yeah, we just need to kind of get something. Just give us a little bit more. You can keep going with it at this point, but just give us something so that we're not just, it's not the same thing. And I know that traditionally things in soaps have dragged on. And I know I've heard from fans who have been watching a very long time that Y&R does historically drag out certain topics for the same amount of time as this one. But it feels like they're still writing the same kind of things with these four women worried about people finding out, and now the trial, if there is a trial, and Victor is being framed. Yeah, we just need to kind of move it along here and move forward. Yeah. Rainy J, when Victor told Billy to pipe down, I was dying. Yeah, that was funny. when Billy showed up and was kind of like, no, we're not doing this your way, Victor. We are going to call the cops and find out where Katie is and, you know, get them involved. And Victor's like, no, 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 no. And it was just really funny seeing Billy try to stand up to Victor, which was great that he was, but Victor shot him down. Okay, so on that note, let's move forward a little bit. We touched on JT, we touched on Nick, Phyllis, and Sharon. We had a lot of people talking about Lola and Kyle, so let's kind of get into that. Afterward, we'll touch on Mia and everything going on with her, and then we can get to our law moment. So, Lola and Kyle. Lola's been very busy this week, and I guess the last couple of weeks. So it's kind of convenient. Lola's very busy. Summer comes back into town. We have Summer and Fen kind of hooking up. They go on a date. They start kissing. So they have their own little thing going on, which at the club is sort of making Kyle a little bit jealous. Like you can tell, especially this new Summer. I don't know if it's a game that Summer's playing, but she's acting like she really doesn't want to like overstep any boundaries and that she doesn't want to actually she doesn't want to do anything bad, which is what she was doing. Before she left, she was all about trying to get Kyle to hook up with her and just, you know, break all of his commitment to Lola. Now she's like, whatever, I don't care, Kyle. Being away has given me, having the distance has given me some space to kind of mature. That's basically what she was saying, and she seems like she is a much better person now, but we'll see what happens because I don't know that we can trust that. Hubby Joe, my prediction, Adam has been living in the house and has JT's body in the freezer. Interesting! That would be one interesting twist. Todd Beaton, Summer needs to go away, and he gave a throw-up face. I like this. I like that we kind of have Mia who's being really dramatic, and so Summer can kind of tone it down a little. Mary, I don't mean to disrespect Lola. She is a gorgeous gal, but I find her way too stuck up on the show. And yeah, she is kind of stuck up a little bit, and especially with the purse thing. I'm never going to forget that. How she gave Kyle a hard time simply because he gave her a purse. Like, not just gave him a hard time, but was going to break up with him over this. So yeah, Lola can be a problem to be with, and she's not high maintenance. It's just that she, in her own way, she causes problems. She, you know, even when they went and they had the lunch together and Kyle surprised her. First of all, when they went to the club, she's like, oh, I only have an hour. Really? Like, come on, you can go out with this guy that is your boyfriend. You can give him the night. You can take a night off and not just, you know, set the limit for 1 hour. That's the first thing. Then when they went back, and Kyle surprised her by having the sushi lunch. She's freaking out about that, and she's like drinking the sake, and she's like, is this too much? Do people do this? And then Lola brings it up about the fact that she's not having sex with Kyle, and she's like, oh, it's just, you know, are you sure? Like, I'm sure that this isn't easy for you. I'm sure this is hard for you. And she didn't say it in a way like she was genuinely concerned. The way that Lola said it, it was more like, oh, well, I'm gonna break up with you if you feel this way. Like, it was almost like Lola was looking for a reason to get out of the relationship. So it just, yeah, it's like Lola's creating her own problems. And even though she's not dramatic, in a way, I don't want to say she's dramatic, but she's almost in a way like she just can't be happy with Kyle. Like, she has to find a reason to almost want to break up with him and push him away. And it's been like that. And even Summer coming back. Now, granted, Kyle was kind of looking over at Summer and Fen, so I get that, and Kyle also didn't tell Lola that he had a conversation with Summer, so I get that Lola would be offended, but in all fairness to Kyle, Lola has been very busy and is making it very hard for Kyle to reach her. So when was he going to tell her he had this conversation with Summer? Maybe he wanted to tell her in person, and if he's not seeing her that often, when was he going to? Todd Beaton, sorry, Lola is better than Summer. Hubby Joe, totally agree, Rachel. Lola makes too much out of everything Kyle does. Mary, agree, hubby. Rainey, she really does. Aaron, there's no chemistry with any of these couples. Hubby Joe, she started to flip out over sushi and sake. Yeah, that's true, she did. So yeah, that's just kind of how I feel with her. I do like her. I think she has a really good, she's a really good character. Like she has, obviously, she's very motivated. She's a hard worker. I think that she could be really good for Kyle because she is not someone who is going to manipulate things or create drama, but she's posing a lot of problems that really don't need to be there. And especially the way that Kyle treats her, he's very good to her and very kind to her. So I just feel like she is creating these issues. Um, and Summer kind of, as we can see from the previews next week, she kind of uses that to her advantage too. But in any case, Todd Beaton, Summer and Kyle's kiss before Summer left. Yeah, I mean, we can tell too that Kyle might still have unresolved feelings for Summer, but he has committed to Lola, and he even told, we even told Summer, hey, I don't think it would be appropriate to go grab dinner with you, blah, blah, blah. So he is doing the right things for the most part. Okay, so we touched on Summer, we touched on Lola, we touched on Finn. We had a little bit happening with Finn and Aunt and Anna. Which was annoying me about Finn, that he was acting like a child slash, I guess we could call him a teenager. He's letting this one song get to his head, and it's really obnoxious. And here's Anna, and she's trying to work so hard to write their next songs. And first of all, Summer comes in, Finn's distracted by her. Then even when Summer's not there, Finn just can't be bothered. And there was one. He comes back at some point at Crimson Lights, and it's just him and Anna. And an hour ago, Anna had said, "Hey, I just wrote this bridge." Fenn comes in with a bridge, like that he didn't hear Anna. I don't really understand that. So not only is he being very lazy and being very hard to work with, but he's making a lot more work than there has to be because he's not listening to Anna. So it almost feels like he's gonna get kicked off again because he's pissing her off. He's not doing his work. And yeah, so I think Fenn's pop star career might be done before it even begins, the way he's acting. Todd Beaton, did you talk about Jack and Carrie? No, we can actually talk about that right now. Okay, there were a lot of rumors about, kind of segueing here since we touched on everything. There were a lot of rumors that basically, obviously Carrie had the secret, and it. Sure. It's plugged in. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. We had the mic kind of died here, so we switched. Okay, so we're back. Thank you guys for bearing with us for that temporary break. And we were about to talk about Jack and Carrie. So what happened with them was there was a there we kind of had heard rumors that there was some kind of surprise that Jack was going to learn at the engagement party for Arturo and Abby. Jack ends up kind of digging through Carrie's purse because it was, it kind of, I mean, he was clearly digging, but he just didn't know what was going on with her, and he finds the syringe. When he confronts her about it, Carrie says that basically they're hormone shots, and it's because he's trying, they're hormone shots to freeze her eggs. And Jack is like, well, you know that's not the place I'm in. I already have full-grown kids. I don't want any, like, I'm not trying to have kids ever again. And then Carrie's like, well, that's maybe you'll change your mind in a couple years, but that doesn't mean that we should stop seeing each other. So first Jack breaks up with Carrie and says that, yeah, I don't think I'm the right man for you. And then they sort of had a reconciliation, kind of, but not really. It was just kind of a weird thing where, first of all, okay, age doesn't matter, but the thing is that with Jack and Carrie, there is an age difference, and Jack's at a point where, like, I could see someone Carrie's age, obviously wanting, she's still young enough, she looks young enough that she could still have kids, and it wouldn't, like, she's just at a much younger age. Whereas Jack, yeah, like he's old enough to have kids that are already in their 20s. So it's just they are in very different places. And that is something that if they're not on the same page with kids, it might not be a good relationship for them to be in. So Hubby Joe, yeah, Hubby Joe, woohoo for the technical crew. Aaron Brody, that camera is creepy. I don't know if he means from Y&R, but from the angles they were doing with JT earlier, or yeah. So in any case, just getting back to everything with Jack and Carrie, they just seem to be on just the wrong page, and it just they've been going back and forth, and it just Carrie, even though I get that she doesn't want to tell Jack certain things, but she just breaks a lot of commitments. Too many. It can't just all be the injection for hormones. Could it? I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but she just she would break things without telling him too. So even if she really had something else to do, she just was not very good at seeing him when she said she was going to see him, and she would just randomly not show up. So it just doesn't seem like the right relationship to me, and I just see it being over before it even really begins. It just doesn't feel, I kind of sense the chemistry a little bit, but it feels like it's fizzling, especially now that we know that they're in very different places. Okay, on that note, let's talk about Mia, and then we'll get to our law moment. So basically this week with Mia, we had the engagement party this week. Mia ends up getting drunk and saying some really like weird things about the Abbotts, and just kind of insulting Abby. And obviously it's because she still loves Arturo. But the weirdest part is when Abby ends up going to Mia's apartment and ends up just trying to break the ice and like fix whatever issues they have between them. And it just doesn't, everything that comes out of their mouth is just very passive aggressive, and it doesn't really work at all. We have the end of the scene. I'm gonna wait to mention it because it's my part of the law moment. But it didn't seem like it felt right, and it just seemed like it made things worse. After all of that, Mia goes and she's doing makeup for Phyllis, and what ends up happening is that Phyllis says, "Yeah, Mia, you remind me of me. What's going on? Like, what's happening in your life? I can tell something's bothering you." And Mia confides in Phyllis and says, "Yeah, like I just can't get this one man out of my heart, even though I'm married." And Phyllis gives her some pretty sage advice. She says, "All right, go to bed every night, tell yourself you're over him. When you wake up, tell yourself you're over him. Do that every night and every morning. One day you will wake up and you actually will be over him." And she's like, "Mia, you have a good thing with your husband. If you go for Arturo, you can certainly get Arturo, but it's going to make you lose everything." Especially, she even brought up the fact that now, like, Arturo marrying Abby actually helps Mia because of the connections and all of that. So, Phyllis hopefully talks some sense into Mia, who has been not just kind of, but definitely acting very manipulative and just kind of crazy, how pissed off she's been getting over this whole engagement. So, that being said, let's check in with the chat a little bit here. Hubby Joe, Mia needs to go. She is crazy. Aaron Brody, who the hell puts a camera in a house? Just watches people all day. So gross. Okay, yeah. So he did mean that camera is creepy. Rainy J, yeah. Aaron, especially when Victor and Nikki went to make love, yeah. hubby Joe, Phyllis can give good advice but never follows her advice. Yeah, that's true too. Okay, so in any case, let's go ahead and get to our law moment. Okay, so I had two separate things. First, when Mia was having the fantasy about cutting a huge chunk of Abby's hair off, and then she's looking at it like a psycho woman, and she looks like she's gonna start laughing like crazy in this like really like creepy laugh, and she's holding the scissors and her eyes are wide, and then she's got the strand of hair, and when Abby pulls back around, you can see that Mia's just standing there with no hair and just holding the scissors in her hand. I was like, wow, this woman is crazy. And yeah, so that was the first one. The second one is when Victor was shaking his fist while he was telling Victoria that he's basically there to defend her if any other man hurts her. But Victor was like this, I will, like with his Victor voice, I will hurt him. It was just very, very, very hilarious. And then we have a couple more comments in the chat. Aaron Brody says, Joe, Phyllis is her own worst enemy. And then Aaron says, Mia is the new crazy. I think that's an excellent note for us to wrap up this week. So, my name is Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Rach Goodman. You can also go over to Facebook. We've got the @Restless Rap page if you want to like and follow it. I always post the link to the show there, and I will read any of your comments. Until next week, I hope you guys have a wonderful week.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.